Good morning, everybody, and welcome to your Rangers Review Morning Briefing. It is Tuesday, the 25th of February. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined for the first time this week by Stevie Clifford, who joins us from his humble abode. Stevie, how's it going?
Yeah, I join you from the under the stairs dungeon, Derek. I am good. Only appearance this week as I'm working the rest of it, so the viewers can put up with me for this half an hour and then they'll be free the rest of the week, so we should be fine.
Yeah, there'll be delighting in your comments on Rangers, I'm sure, Stevie, and there's plenty to discuss, of course, as there was when we were last on. It's been pretty entertaining the last week or so following Rangers. A lot of change happening. A lot of expected change off the pitch as well, of course, but on it, change was made late on Sunday night. Of course, we heard that Philip Clement was dismissed and Rangers were looking to appoint a caretaker boss until the end of the season. That was announced yesterday. Barry Ferguson returning to the club to take the team until the end of the current season. He will be assisted by former teammates Alan McGregor, Billy Dodds and Neil McCann, with Issam Sharai also part of that coaching team. And I've got to say, I watched Barry's interview with Rangers TV last night, and I'm pretty excited about tomorrow night, Stevie, and the games ahead. Can I get your reaction on what was probably a bit of a surprise, I've got to say, when Barry's name was first mooted? I think I wasn't alone in thinking, really. But that is the route that Rangers are going down. And great to see some of the ex-Rangers back to help him out as well. What do you make of the news?
It was a shock. I think that's first things first. But, Derek, it was getting to the point where I would have taken the lollipop guy at the end of the street rather than what we had in the dugout, because look, everybody knows where I am with the manager or the ex-manager, or where I was. Indeed, anybody that had watched that game on Saturday knew that this was now a matter of urgent priority, because Rangers were absolutely dire and on the verge of, you could actually sit there and go, yeah, this team have completely chucked this. And I don't think that was unfair or an unfair opinion to have of watching it. Rangers lacked so much, and effort, desire, heart, it wasn't there. So it was pretty urgent, and I think what's happened is that the board, the CEO, the chairman have looked at that and concurred to the point where they thought this is urgent. And it was the right thing to do. It's 6 months overdue for me, but it was certainly the right thing to do. We couldn't have limped to the end, or games like Saturday would have been, not more so games, but performances like Saturday would have been the absolute normality. So as all this was breaking on Sunday night, Derek, I was knee-deep in a 12-hour shift. So I had Chris on one phone, Johnny on the other ear, and everything was pretty busy on Sunday night. And I was surprised when Barry's name was first mentioned. It started coming through on Sunday afternoon, and then you were like, is that really going to happen? But listen, it has happened. He's here. It was a big surprise, but Barry's a legend at this football club, and he's backed up by quite a few who know what they're doing. So we want a wee bit of heart, we want a wee bit of passion, and I just want to see a wee bit of, I want to be able to relate to the football team that I'm watching on the pitch, and he's here for 3 months, so I'm pretty sure that he'll install that and be able to do that. He's not a miracle worker. This team needs so much. It really does. It needs so much, and you know, to be pretty blunt, and I think we all feel this way, it needs a good boot up the backside as well, and you know fine well that the guys that were put in yesterday will certainly do that. So yeah, it's been a whirlwind 24 hours, 48 hours, that's for sure. But if you would ask me on Sunday morning or Saturday afternoon if I would have taken that change after watching that 90-minute performance against St Mirren, I absolutely would have.
Yeah, like you, Stevie, I think it was well overdue, the dismissal of Philip Clement. He's someone that just simply didn't have the credentials to manage Rangers domestically. Listen, you can't criticise him over the European form, although I look back at Dynamo Kyiv perhaps, I'll still say that sending off of Jefty cost Rangers that night. But in Europe, he got results. Domestically, he didn't. And it was a poor appointment in the end. And of course, now we've got this caretaker team in charge before, of course, new ownership expected in the summertime. I would expect them to come in and want their own guy to take charge of the team. But it's an opportunity for the guys at the helm just now to put their stamp on things. And of course, a lot of people talking about Barry's interview yesterday, and he did foresee changes to what we've been witnessing so far. So I'll read you some little snippets from what he had to say. It was a refreshing interview that he gave. He was quizzed on, well, a message for the fans. He was asked at the end of that interview, says the message would be, you're going to see a team that's going to have a certain style of play, attack-minded, and we're going to try and win every single game. We're going to be aggressive, which was part of my game as well. And I don't mean that by going and tackling people or going over the top with people. I mean aggressive in the press. So we just need to make sure we get it right. But as I said, when I look at the squad, I do believe there is a team capable of winning games week in, week out. So I'm just excited to get started. You can see I'm getting a bit sweaty here and ready to go. And we'll just take it game by game. But every game we enter to win. And he's also touched on the team and how he thinks the performance have been this season. He says inconsistent. I think in terms of, for instance, Europe, I think some of the performances have been top class. Domestically, for me, that's your bread and butter. That's where you've got to win most weeks. You're always going to have a bump in the road, but I think there's been too many bumps in the road. So it's our job and my job as a manager and the staff's job to try and get that level of consistency into the squad. Because as I said, there's definitely quality players. They look like a good group. They just look a little bit flat at this moment in time. But again, that's our job as staff to try and get that confidence back up. And I like this. He was asked about in his first session, which will be today, a training session. What will be your message to the players in these early stages? Enjoy it. You're playing with Glasgow Rangers. It's a privilege walking through into this training centre. I've not been here for a while. I see a number of changes. Enjoy yourself. They're going to enjoy training. Training will be tough, there's no doubt, but it'll be enjoyable as well. There'll be a certain standard, which I would expect. It's all about enjoying your football. It's serious when it comes to 90 minutes. It's all about winning at Rangers. That's how I was brought up. That's the way I want my players to be. You have to win every game. The demands and the expectations put on you here when people come to watch you, they expect you to win games, and I don't think we've won enough this year. So some interesting stuff there from Barry Ferguson. Stevie, I want my manager not to sort of pull the wool over your eyes, which I feel Philip Clement was guilty of doing to the fan base at various points. I don't think Barry will do that. I think it'll be no nonsense. And that's, I think, what this team need. I'm expecting an upturn in performance levels immediately, actually. I think we'll get an upturn tomorrow night. We may not, but I think this group of players, like Barry says, are capable of so much more.
They absolutely are. I think that's undoubted. I think it's also undoubted that when you look at their performance of late, they have stopped. So somebody needs to put a rocket where it needs to go. It's funny because I've heard a lot of things about Barry in the last kind of couple of days, and I've worked with Barry quite a bit, and the way Barry speaks is how Barry speaks. That's what he does, and that's what he says, and he's very honest and forthright. When he was talking yesterday, in my head, I was like, I've heard this all before, because this is how he is, and this is how he kind of conducts himself when it comes to Rangers. So none of it really came as a surprise. I know that I think we all know, judging by what we've seen there, that he's going to be passionate and he's going to be aggressive in the message. And these players are in for a shock, because you could theoretically win 4-0 tomorrow night at Rugby Park and Barry won't be happy. I think that's almost an absolute given. It's well known, you know, when players talk about him, never happy, always whinging, always striving for more. And this is what this club needs. It needs somebody aggressive to push him on. And do you know what, Derek? It needs a wee bit of realism as well. This is a stopgap measure.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you going to get up? People were talking about, why don't you go and get Sean Dyche and stuff like that for 3 months? Sean Dyche isn't coming here for 3 months. and Sean Dyche was on $100,000 a week at Everton. People need a wee bit of realism. It was
But-
always
but-
going to be
Yeah,
an
but what,
ex-pro.
I don't understand why. Yeah, 3 months. It's no chance.
No, so the options are quite simple. You stick with Philippe Clement, and Saturday becomes the new norm, as we had seen, or you make the change and get somebody a wee bit passionate in to install something in the last 3 months or so. So it had to be done. I don't think there was any other way about it. The funny thing is, as well, I spoke to you about this, Derek. Somebody asked us a question about 2 or 3 weeks ago on this show about getting Barry Ferguson involved. And I think it was when they appointed the Moroccan boy Sharai that they said, why aren't we going for somebody like Barry Ferguson? And I said, Barry will tell you that he will not leave his current position and he will not change because he doesn't want to, because he's really enjoying his life and enjoys what he does, etc. He sat there and told a room full of people that just a couple of weeks ago. And I said to him, I said, come on, like, if Rangers are, he said, no, honestly. So he's a wee fibber. So I'll be telling him next time we see him in a press conference as well. We'll have a laugh at that, I think. But listen, I think it just proves it for somebody like Barry that, and for Alan McGregor and the likes of Neil McCann and stuff, who were all quite comfortable, either retired or doing what they're doing. That, you know, once Rangers come calling, that kind of love for the club never really leaves you, does it? So, yeah, I'm looking forward. There'll be some laugh tomorrow night when we turn up and the team news is McGregor's picked himself, Barry's back midfield, Neil McCann's on the left, and Billy Dodge is up front with Danilo. So yeah, you know, the funny thing is, when I looked at that joke being sent round last night, I looked at Neil McCann on the left and thought, you know, there isn't anybody else. But realistically,
that, by the way, he can still play.
Of course he can. But realistically, obviously, you know, there's a lot to be done before tomorrow night. He's got one training session to do it. How do you change that team from Saturday? I don't think you can change much because there's a lot of injuries at the time. But it certainly needs something, Derek, that's for sure.
Yeah. James says, is there a press conference today? There is, James. 2 p.m. we'll hear from Barry ahead of that game tomorrow night. Joshua and Chris heading over to the training centre for us. So, keep your eyes peeled for that. It'll be interesting. I'm sure it'll be a bumper press conference as well. So very much looking forward to seeing and hearing what Barry has to say this afternoon. Lots of interesting points coming in. Let's get to a few of them. Mark says, Ferguson and McGregor has my missus back interested in football again. So just for that, thank you, Rangers. Mrs. Boyle back interested in the famous once more. Lewis with a point here. It sort of touched on your point about Barry not being happy and being a bit of a moaner, Stevie. He says, I'm concerned about the reaction from the players to Barry's hairdryer treatment. Will they react in a good way? I'm not so sure. He's been a manager before, as have Neil McCann and Billy Dodds. So he's got a lot of experience around him. Issam Sharai, of course, is a heavily respected coach where he's been also. So I'm not necessarily. They know what a modern dressing room is like. It's not like that they've been transported back to the 90s, and you know what it's like there. It's fights and fisticuffs, what have you. So I don't have any concerns about that. And listen, if they're not up to it, and I'm sure the coaching staff will know if there's anyone that's not pulling the leg, then they'll be the first to know.
Derek, what's the alternative? What reaction are we getting right now out of them?
Exactly.
Right. And so I appreciate what Lewis is saying, but genuinely, what reaction are we getting now? Because they're not trying a leg. I think that was clear on Saturday. They all chucked it and they've all given up. So they're not reacting to Philippe Clement at this moment, or they weren't, and they certainly haven't been in the last few weeks. We've just been dumped out the Scottish Cup and survived pretty fortunately at Tynecastle, as we all said at the time, and then Saturday was just a complete nonsense from start to finish. So what's the alternative here? That we just stick and hope, or you go with somebody that will install a wee bit of passion and put demands on them that they probably don't get and haven't had? So no, I've got no concerns about players being little snowflakes if Barry shouts at them. That's their problem. Man up. This is Rangers. It's about time the players started taking accountability, Derek, for the embarrassing performances and attitude they've got when they're wearing our shirt. And that goes for every single one of them from start to finish. It's not good enough. And they need a few home truths. And that starts with, even tomorrow night, installing that a wee bit more passion and a wee bit more belief into their performances, because it's a total nonsense what the players have done recently. And shouldn't forget that. In the middle of, we can blame Clement for everything, and I blame him for 90% of it. I really do. Players have got to stand up. And I think it's, they shouldn't be missed in the middle of all this, because Saturday was a real eye-opener. And I keep going on about it, but Saturday was a real eye-opener. I don't think they tried a leg at all. So, they've got a lot of questions to answer for the rest of this season. And I'm not concerned about Barry shouting at them and giving them a wee bit of stick and how they react. That's up to Barry then to sort out, and he will. So I'm not concerned about it in the slightest, because they're not reacting at the moment anyway. So the status quo is that we stay in and get beat every other Saturday because of the players not reacting. So, no.
Well, if you go down the years when Rangers have brought in a new manager, we generally see a bounce, an upturn in performance levels. I'm expecting that starting tomorrow night. His backroom team, Stevie, I want to get your views on that, because there's a few raised eyebrows, it's fair to say. Paul with a point says, are you guys surprised that Barry brought Billy Dodds? Listen, these are guys that he respects. He spoke about them yesterday in that interview with Rangers TV, why he'd hoped to get them in, and he thanked the club and the two guys, Neil McCann and Billy Dodds, who were in jobs as well in the media. So he was very thankful that they could join him as part of the setup. What do you make of the Dodds one's a little bit of a surprise for you? It's obviously Barry's put together his team. It's what he wants. So you can't sort of argue with that. But what do you make of the overall backroom staff, Stevie?
Not really. It's surprised at the start, but the more you kind of think about it, not really surprised. Listen, I think he's quite close with Billy Dodds. He's quite close with Neil McCann. He's obviously best mates with Alan McGregor. So it was quite obvious what he was going to do and who he was going to put in. I don't really have an issue. That's his choices. Billy Dodds got lots of managerial experience, whether we accept that experience or not. If I'm right, and I remember correctly, took Inverness Cali to the Scottish Cup final.
You did, yep.
And he certainly was there and thereabouts with them. So that's not an easy job, as you see where they are now, and what's happening with them. So, Billy's got experience in coaching every day on the training field and stuff like that. So he would have looked at that. Neil McCann, certainly has impressed a lot of people with his tactical knowledge. It was funny because everybody was raving about his sports scene clip at the weekend and saying this is the kind of guy we need involved. And then he is involved and people are like, oh, I don't know if we should have done this. Look, they're all experienced people. Whether it works or not, we'll find out. But as I point out to you, the alternative, as I said, was just not worth thinking about. So they're here now, get behind them. They're actually people that I quite like. So I've talked about you before on this, about Billy Dodds when he played for Rangers. I actually loved Billy Dodds. I thought he was great. Scored some really good goals for us, pitched in well, was always there and thereabouts when we needed him. So, no, I quite liked him as a player. Neil McCann, obviously, everybody loves Neil McCann.
Yeah.
So, we just need to get on. And Griggsy, I was reminded of some of his press conference moments yesterday. So, I'm hoping that he never pops into the press conference room again, because he was funny.
I'm hoping honestly, he does. Yeah.
See, when he used to come in, it was David Graham at the time, but he used to go, right, who wants to go first? And everybody was just like, nah, it's fine. So, it's funny. Griggsy's rather amusing. But I've seen the other side of Griggsy as well. When he got his Hall of Fame stuff, we were allowed to interview him as fan of media, and he was completely a different person than the persona that you see behind the camera kind of thing. And I seen that picture of him last night, and he looked proud as punch to be there where he is. So I can see Alan McGregor having an extended loan. Loan is not the right word. Extended deal at Rangers, because Colin Stewart's gone now. So I wouldn't be surprised.
Yesterday,
I wouldn't be surprised if he stuck around for a while. So it's certainly going to be interesting. We know how good a goalkeeper he was. We know how good a winger Neil McCann was for us. Billy Dodds scored lots of goals for us. So, they certainly know what's required and they know the demands, that's for sure.
Yep, just on Billy Dodds, and shout out to the Rangers Archives, which is a cracking site. I watched that sort of montage of all his goals when he played for Rangers. Didn't realise how many goals and how many quality goals he scored for Rangers at the time. It still baffles me how Rangers traded him for Stephen Thompson at the time. And I think they gave Dundee United money also, over £1 million. Still don't get that, Stevie. It's still, I know Stephen Thompson did a ton for Rangers as well and scored one of the goals in the original Helicopter Sunday and popped up with some crucial goals, but it's no comparison. Billy Dodds was a far superior striker for me.
Yeah, he was, and he was the kind of striker that I liked, the good old-fashioned number 9. So, and I would say as well that Stephen, who does Rangers Archives, it's an incredible site. I think I watch it daily just to get the updates on the latest games, and Dodds was an outstanding striker for us. Scored at Parkhead when I was there in a 1-1 draw, and scored a lot of goals. Scored his chip against Sturm Graz, which always comes to mind.
Yeah,
but he was always reliable for a goal, absolutely. And yeah, I don't think we paid $1 million for Stephen Thompson. I can't remember that being, because did we not get him on a Bosman?
1.2 brings to mind, just that figure brings to mind.
I'm pretty sure we signed him on a Bosman, 6 months to go on his deal, and we chucked in a deal to get him and Dodge. If it was 1.2 million, then
it might have been 1.2 for Billy Dodds at the time. I can't quite remember, but you can let us know in the comments, folks. But
yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me at the time. Tombo was all right. He wasn't great. Scored some important goals for the club, but he was like I don't
think his montage would be as long as Billy Dodds' Stevie, put it that way. But he
was just there to polish Adol Purcell's boots, wasn't he? Really? So, we'll just have to see. Look, as I said to you, I would be surprised. I would be surprised if we didn't get a reaction out of the players, because it'll be demanded on us.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm looking forward to the game tomorrow night. Neil gets in touch. He says, went to air races with Billy Dodds. He's good at picking horses. So there you go. Excellent stuff. So yeah, that press conference this afternoon, folks, very much looking forward to it. Some interesting points coming in here. Now, Stevie, let's be honest, we'd like to see an upturn in performances domestically, but the season, in terms of silverware, even though I very much doubt Rangers are going to go all the way to Bilbao, but it really hinges on that Fenerbahce double-header. We want to see Rangers get the better of Jose Mourinho. Cannot wait to see him come up against Barry Ferguson. If he can get the better of him, what a feather in the cap that would be. LB says, we'd love to see them take us on a decent run in Europe. How do you rate Rangers' chances at this moment in time? I've seen Fenerbahce drew with Galatasaray yesterday, 0-0. Absolutely bonkers game, as it normally is. I've seen Mourinho being... seen Galatasaray, according to reports, I think, accusing him of racism, which seems a bit crazy. He said that the Galatasaray dugout were jumping about like monkeys. It looks to be in a bit of hot water, Jose Mourinho. How do you rate Rangers' chances, Stevie?
Well, the comment there, I'd love to see them go on a decent run in Europe. We've already went on and we already are on a decent run in Europe. So we're in that. We're on that at this moment in time. The players turn up for Europe because they actually bother themselves. So, look, Fenerbahce was always going to be a really tough ask, regardless. And that isn't a revisionism of thoughts, because we all said at the time it was drawn. Do I think we've got a better or worse chance at this moment in time? I couldn't really call it, because this team, as I said, you do turn up and they do turn it on for Europe. Repeat myself slightly. Or repeat myself more than once, Derek. But if anybody that watched that game on Saturday and has watched us this last couple of weeks, this team has down tools, has completely chucked it. So the alternative of keeping him there, you are hoping that they respond and turn up on a match day, rather than being sure that they'll be drilled and backsides kicked and ready to go. And Fenerbahce under Philip Clement was a complete mismatch at this moment in time, that's for sure. And look, it goes back to last week as well. He does himself no favours at all when he talks about, people having a certain style. He talked about Jose Mourinho having a style that he didn't like because he prefers attacking football. And then you watch us against St Mirren on Saturday playing a 4-2-3-1 with one up front and having 3 shots on target all game. So, Jose Mourinho is Jose Mourinho, an iconic manager and stuff like that. But it'll be interesting. Barry will relish that. He'll get stuck in and he won't care. So he'll get stuck right into that. And I think, there's certainly going to be a lot of passion and a lot of, it'll be a good atmosphere at Ibrox and stuff. It'll be up to Rangers to go over there, keep the tie alive and make sure they're still in it, make sure they get something. And we'll just need to see how that turns out. Remember, the squad have been to Olympiacos this year, which is very similar. They'll have experienced that kind of fever pitch atmosphere, maybe not to the extent of Fenerbahce. It was funny yesterday when they were talking about 30,000 police on duty for that, Derek. And you know how I like my stats. I immediately Googled how many full-time police officers there are in Scotland. And as of March 2024, there was just under 16,500 in total for this country. Now, bear in mind, as somebody said to me yesterday, I think it was Davey said to you yesterday, that Istanbul has a population of 15 million. So, yeah, I get it, granted, but 30,000 on duty for a match. Apparently, 1,000 were man-marking Jose Mourinho as well. So, but crazy numbers. So, look, we just need to enjoy it, take it on and see where it goes. It is what it is. But I wouldn't have persisted just because of Fenerbahce. That's for sure.
Just sticking with the topic of Fenerbahce, Alex, we an interesting point here. He says Galatasaray against Fenerbahce had a foreign referee officiate for them last night after Mourinho complaints. Well, we see that in an Old Firm fixture. I'll say it right now, I would love to see that, Stevie. If it can be done elsewhere in Turkey, then surely it's something that can be looked at, although I doubt Willie Collin will go down that avenue. But I've said it before, especially after some high-profile gaffes, it's fair to say, go out and get the best officials to officiate this game, because it's too big for me for some of the officials that are available in this country. What's your view on that one?
I am shocked, Derek. You're trying to tell me you do not trust Don Robertson, Alan Mulvaney and Frank Connor as we're getting tomorrow night? I am shocked. I really am. I think the standard of refereeing that we put up with and the decision making as well, it was highlighted yesterday on the Sky Sports Ref Watch, and it doesn't matter now, and people will moan about it and that, but Inciala was fouled on Saturday for that first goal. He gets clipped by his right knee and then trips himself, and as it was pointed out yesterday, it's just a total nonsense the way that VAR goes into it. Kevin Clancy couldn't wait to get his red card out for Igaman on Saturday, and it wasn't even a bad challenge in the slightest. And you consider some of the challenges that we get on a weekly basis. So it's going to be interesting, because Neil McCann and Billy Dodds and things have been quite vocal about this on the BBC. So now they are actually managing, and on the end of it, it's going to be interesting to see how they react. But look, would I take foreign referees? I think that I would take anybody competent rather than what we have at that moment in time.
Just the best referees. Go out and get the best ones, please. And this question from Guardian Zero. Well, first of all, David Ray says, Derek, has or will PC make a statement? I imagine he will. He's got social media accounts. You usually get managers that have been dismissed releasing a statement of some sort on their social media channel. So I'd imagine that will be at some point. You'll usually give, managers usually say it was an honour managing the club. I wish them well, all that sort of stuff. So I'd imagine that will be pretty much similar. Guardian Zero says, will we see the style? What we see the style, I think it means change tomorrow night. I think Ferguson, as I touched on in his Rangers TV interview, Stevie said that he will make changes to the team. Can we expect a formation change, perhaps? 2 up top. Many will be screaming at the laptops, hoping for personnel changes. Do you think it'll be he'll make sort of wholesale alterations, or will that be a gradual thing, given he's only in charge, of course, for this 3-month period? I mean, some are suggesting as well, does he strip Tav of the captaincy? I'm not entirely sure he will go down that route, but what changes do you expect?
Well, if you could make 8 changes from that Saturday lineup, you would, wouldn't you? But you can't. We talked about this on Four Lads podcast last night, myself and David Hurd, that there's so many injuries at the moment. You would ideally bring in Suter, Balogun, wouldn't you? You would ideally bring in changes throughout that team. I think, look, if you were to dissect it and go through it, I think there's a real problem at left back at the moment. Jeffrey's bang out of confidence and form. We're getting nothing from him on that side, and he's getting passed far too easily. Would you bring in Ridvan, who was equally as murder when he was taken out of the team as well? It's not like there's an answer there. There's nobody at right back you can bring in for Tav. At centre back, you know, you've got Proper, Fernandez, and Inciala. Balogun and Suter are struggling. Dujon Sterling, I'm not sure where he is. Never mind what's happening with him. Oscar Cortez is made like a rich tea biscuit. So, like, there's what changes do you make? There's Connor Barron's out for a period of time, so you can't really change the midfield. You know, what do you do? And I think he gave you a hint when he talked about, you know, he likes wingers and how he plays. I think you might see, you know, a winger out on the left instead of Yanis Hadji. I don't know. I mean, it's like for like. Do you put Danilo in for the start up front because he's your number 9? And I'm biased and will tell you that he's your best option. He absolutely is. You know, do you go with him and do you take Eagleman out the firing line, who's been off the boil now for the best part of 2 months? You know, there's a lot of questions there. There's a lot of players that you have to ask. And listen, ultimately, Derek, the players will answer this themselves. Have they chucked it? Did they down tools, or were they just completely fed up? Were they just completely out of ideas? Does it need that reinstalled in them, etc.? Then, yeah, I mean, but you're not going to get away with the effort that you gave on Saturday when it comes to tomorrow night, that's for sure. But is there anything Barry Ferguson can do? I'm not so sure. Does he chuck in Bailey Rice? You'll probably see a lot in Bailey Rice at what he's seen himself at that age. He might do that. Finlay Curtis might come in on the left. Aside of that, Derek, this isn't a squad or a team that you can, you know, click your fingers at and wave a magic wand at. There's no answers there. There's no obvious solutions. So what Barry does will be interesting, but I'd just like to see a wee bit of fire and determination in that team. One thing I would like to see him fix, and I think it's clear, we've got a real problem in midfield. The balance of that midfield doesn't work. Raskin and Diamandi, the way they were asked to be played, the midfield is absolutely wide open. Anybody that watched the game again on Saturday, it's the same thing. St Mirren ran through us plenty of times. The boy O'Hara completely dominated that midfield. And, you know, Gogic in defence, yet again, bullying Dessers and stuff like that. We are physically weak. So he needs to try and fix that. And he talked about physicality last night, didn't he? So it's pretty obvious what everybody sees in this team and what we're lacking. But it's not like he can suddenly fix it with 6 changes. So he's up against it. But I'd like to think that the players, you know, will get told in no uncertain terms that if that's their level on Saturday and you produce that for me, as in Barry, then you won't survive here in the slightest. So he's got some changes he can make. None of them are a magic wand. I just hope they work out for him, that's for sure. Because I'm rooting for him. Absolutely rooting for all of them that went in charge, because they put themselves on the line. It's an opportunity for 3 months only. So, you know, they obviously think they can make a difference. And I believe they can. So get behind them and see what happens.
Here. We'll wrap up there. Remember, folks, if you're wanting to fire a comment into the show, you have to be a subscriber to the channel. That is totally free. And Alexander gets in touch this morning, and thank you to whoever gave me the free membership. I must have missed it yesterday. If you want to join us at the Rangers Review Extra channel, you get exclusive content. You can access videos before they're released to everyone else. That's $2.99 a month. You can hit the join button on the Rangers Review homepage on YouTube, and you've got your Q&A show, which we'll record today, folks. We'll record that at 1 p.m. So I'll pop out the link on the community page a little later on after we wrap up here. So we'll record at 1 p.m. and just a heads up, that press conference today with Barry at 2 p.m. this afternoon. So plenty to come your way on the channel. Right, big thank you to Stevie as ever, and thank you to you all for tuning in to the show. It's greatly appreciated, and we'll speak to you later on. Bye for now.